with the Grand Royale being one of the most intense tournaments across the majority of the regions, having the best player from EU, NA East and NA West winning their respective region, EU being Tayson alongside Hen and Chapix, NA East being Boga alongside Miro and Jukes, and then NA West being Epic, Will, Arkham and Reet. With the wacky format that the Grand Royale ended up having, yet the high success rate of it, it begs the question, how good was the Grand Royale? I want to jump a little bit back further in the year to actually start off this review. To start with, we knew nothing about the Grand Royale coming into the entire year. We knew there would be a roughly $5 million tournament at the end of the year when they did the entire year plan, stating there's going to be 4 FNCSs, a mid-year tournament and then an end-year tournament. We didn't actually get any idea of what this would be or how to qualify for it up until the 12th of October, which was way too late, almost 1 month out from the tournament. If you want to build a ton of hype and a ton of storylines for a massive tournament like this, you have to start a lot earlier, such as even all the way back in Season 5, we should have known that if you'd placed in a single set lobby environment, you would have qualified through to this. We could have continually built up these stories throughout the entire year, creating a ton of hype all the way up to the Grand Royale, making it an amazing spectacle from start to finish that players were really excited about watching. Instead, it unfortunately was left a little bit late, meaning that the hype wasn't really there for the tournament overall. I don't think this had to do with the short qualification time, being the qualifiers on 1 week and the finals on the next. I genuinely think this could have just been built up over the entire year so that players were excited about it from all the way back in January. Now, I'm guessing this is probably because of the COVID restrictions. They weren't even sure what they were going to do at the end of the year until really late. I hope in the future we see a lot earlier announcements of these end of year tournaments, if that's going to be what they continue to do, so that we can start to build up the hype for these tournaments from the start of the year. With that being said, the addition of the hype hour was really good to build some hype for obviously the course the next day. They did intertwine it with a lot of the announcements for the next year over 2022, but at the same time it was really good to go down memory lane and remember some of the FNCS biggest moments from season 5, 6, 7 and 8 and what brought us here today. And broadcasts like this are things that I really want to see going forward, not just because I get paid to be on them, but it's just a great way to get people talking about Fortnite competitive. There's always 50,000 people watching that, with some good recaps, with some good banter, with some good quality production that was in there. And sure, if it was more of just a pre-show and didn't have the announcements from next year, it wouldn't have as big of a hype, there wouldn't be as many people watching it. But it did a great job of setting up the next day regardless, and got a ton of people watching the FNCS broadcast that hadn't in a long time. And the feedback from the broadcast this season was really positive about Grand Royale. Now, speaking of positive broadcast, let's move on to the qualifiers, where there was absolutely no broadcast, which is fine, but not for the specific format. The specific format required essentially 32 reboot round teams and 1 consistency team to make it through, and had almost zero hype. This didn't really make sense to me to start with, but I was okay with it if we were going to watch every single one of these on a broadcast style. But what ended up happening was there was zero broadcast coverage over this time. And also the games were just dull. I fell asleep. For you, I watched the first 8 games and I didn't watch any of the rest of them. Now, the reason for this is that reboot round style games are very interesting because they're so tense. The tension is in the air. Thinking all the way back to the earliest ones where there was only a single reboot round. When you watch these games, I remember being so close to my screen. Anytime a player was eliminated, it impacted the leaderboards hugely because that was them over. That was their tournament over with. The run was done and that was it for them. It was literally all or nothing. With these, if the players went out, well, they had 31 more reboot rounds to play through. Oh, next game they go down, it's 32. It's just a similar thing. Basically, the only thing that ended up worth being watching from these was the 9th zone, the final moving zone, and who's actually going to win it. The problem with this is that no gameplay styles could be analyzed. There was nothing else that was interesting outside of the fact that that final moving zone and who's going to win the game. From these qualifiers, from the 32 reboot rounds, I used zero information that I got from this weekend in the finals broadcast. Not a single storyline was covered from that weekend that carried over into the finals weekend, which is one of the most frustrating things for me because I obviously love the qualifiers, building up stories usually, and there was just nothing in the qualifiers from these, given it was just win a game, hope for the best. Now, I'm fairly certain Epic knows that this wasn't good, and it seems to have just been a test from what I could tell so far, based on what they said about next year and how they're implementing reboot round style games into that and winning games as an important factor. I'm very happy that it's gone and done. You know what? They tested something. Sometimes you have to push it to the extreme to be able to test it to see truly where the limits are. This was way past the limits. However, it did actually create a high quality lobby. The main man himself, at Kinch Analytics on Twitter, go follow him. He provides some awesome stuff. Did an analysis of all of the qualifying formats throughout the year, and to summarize it, the quality of the lobby was on par with Season 6 and Season 7 of Chapter 2, and it was actually much better than Season 5 and Season 8. This is mainly due to the fact that it was a top 300 teams started to go into this qualification system that then they ended up going through the large amount of reboot round style games, so it was a much higher baseline than most of the regular FNCSs. However, honestly, it provided an equal to some of the best of the year, but with a tournament like this should have been the highest quality lobby by far, which it failed to do. So this qualification system sure created a high quality lobby, but it could have been better. So let's jump on actually to the finals. This is very, very similar to a regular FNCS finals that we've had throughout the entire year. However, on day 2, the points were doubled. Now this caused a couple interesting things. Firstly, the day 1 did feel a little bit lackluster, a little bit not as hyped because we knew what was coming in day 2 and then it was way more important for the leaderboards. But at the same time, it kind of always feels like that anyway when it comes to an FNCS finals, that the day 1 just starts building the storylines and day 2 is what's really going to start to conclude them. But overall, I don't think that dynamic was too bad in terms of day 1 not feeling that incredible. I was also tired, so that didn't help. A lot of the viewers and a lot of the feedback that I've read so far have thought that this double points on day number 2 is what made these games so unbelievably hyped. It definitely allowed for teams to make larger comebacks, but I don't think that's why the games were so good. Actually, if we look at another tweet from Kinch Analytics, look at this. This is hyping them up all the time. We'll see that the points at the top of EU were still really, really close and were roughly the same, only changing a little bit between second and third. But the games would have equally been as hyped anyway, because the leaderboard still would have been that close going into the final match if it was just not doubled points on day 2. It can also have a really negative impact, like on OCE, where we saw the top team of Tuin's team just get way too far ahead and not necessarily have any chance at any other team catching up, because I think at the end of game 9 they were almost 200 points ahead and there's just no shot if they just continued to play marginally okay at that moment. This is one of the reasons why I'm quite hyped about the match point format coming next year, but I already talked about it in my last video. The finals ended up playing out just like a regular finals of an FNCS, just with a little bit more hype. I love that the top teams were going all up against each other in such a close battle on EU, NA East and NA West to make it such a tight fight for the end. And it was a really nice wrap up to the entire year to see that some of the best storylines through across the entire of 2021 have concluded with a nice little bow at the end of the year. The qualifiers were some of the least enjoyable Fortnite that I've ever watched, and I really hope we never do that again, but I did really enjoy the finals. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Peace.